Shut up, compressor. Well, I started weathering the prop over on this blade over here with some Guns Mr. Weathering Color multi-gray. And it's not the easiest to see, but you can see right there it's getting some fun little wear effects going on. And to my surprise, it also started eating the dry transfer. So before I proceed, we're going to put down some MRP semi-matte. And I am going to hope that it doesn't eat the dry transfers too. Yay. Now, why am I not going full-on dead flat with these? Well, mainly because I want to weather them. And I want to weather them in a way where the stuff doesn't tide mark and all that jazz. And that Guns Weathering Color stuff works pretty well over slightly shinier things, and then you get some interesting sheen variants going on, which is always fun. So that's looking pretty decent. Okay, now to do a bit of weathering on the gear doors. For this, we're using a bit of that Guns multi-gray. Let's see, let's start with these guys. Still the stuff on there. And you basically take this foam, sponge, whatever, and you just kind of dab at it. See, it gives it a bit of a worn sheen there. Catches the light a bit funny, but the cool thing about these weathering colors is you can kind of stack them, if that makes any sense. So we can do gray, then we can do maybe a little bit of brown, and black. Gear doors are starting to look the part. Fantastic. Now, after we've got a base of gray, we can come in with a little bit of multi-black. And we basically do the same stuff. So I know that the reflections and everything make it tough to see what's really happening here. And for bonus points, come in as this stuff kind of dries and hit it with a blending brush. It'll maintain a lot of what it's got going on, but we'll also smooth it out. There we go. So one of the things I strive for in my videos is to be straightforward. Basically to call it as I see it, and if I like something, to name it. If I don't like it, to also name it. And that applies equally to when I fuck up, or to when I discover something I think is pretty cool. And right now, just to be completely honest and stick this into the build series, I am stuck. Basically, I have, at this point, hit the part where I need to start playing with oils. And the jug is looking pretty decent. I know I said early on I didn't want to weather it too hard because these things weren't in service all that long and they were flying from a pretty well-stocked facility over at Boxton. So it doesn't make sense to have this thing like slathered in dust and mud because they were meant to fly fast as hell and just shoot things down. And so they were kind of probably babied a little bit more than something like a 9th Air Force Razorback stuck out in some forward operating base in Belgium or something. So it's important to keep that in mind as sort of the historical context of the subject itself. There's also the consideration of if I did try to do even like light weathering across the aircraft, say I were to take some of this Mr. Weathering color gray and basically use it as like a filter, because the colors I'm dealing with here, light blue is not a big deal, but the dark blue, this flat black, and the bare metal, the second you touch anything to them, any sort of oil, it shows up, and everything around it is there too. It's not like it's not like dark green or neutral gray where only the really pigmented sections show up. Basically every single thing shows up. So if I were to work in the Mr. Weathering color and then do something where I were to kind of feather it out with some odorless mineral spirits, etc., anywhere those mineral spirits touched would show up. And that basically means I either need to weather all of the aircraft, if I were to, if I want to do something subtle, like, sort of give a little bit of patchwork patina type stuff with the multi-gray, I either need to weather the whole damn thing or none of it, and focus my oil work on targeted effects like foot traffic around the wing route and, kind of maybe heading out towards the gun access doors, or fuel leaks and oil leaks and hydraulic leaks and exhaust staining and things like that. So it's I'm presently very stuck at how I want to approach this, because I think it needs maybe a little something, but I also don't think it needs a lot of something. And so that's a really tough choice to make. And to be perfectly honest, all the coronavirus stuff going around has sort of injected a bit of like a back of the brain fuzz into all my thinking. And it doesn't really help me through this situation at all. So this is one where I think I'm going to maybe step away from the bench for a few minutes and walk around and try to get my head around what I want to do. On the plus side, the blast tubes are installed. How about that? They look pretty cool. The prop is still not installed. Neither is the cowl. It's kind of sitting there on its own. Come on. There you go. Don't be a baby. And if you look at the prop itself, it does have the multi-gray on the black, which is cool because it makes it a little bit more varied than just having plain flat black. It's a little bit of grime and grunge and all that stuff. So that looks good on that. It's just I don't trust it across the entire aircraft. So yeah, it's time to step away and think for a few minutes. Okay, so I have made my choice, and that choice is to focus on weathering up stains and fluid leaks and shit like that. Foot traffic on the top of the wing, and not really try to do sort of an overall weathering approach to this. Basically because, again, the P-47Ms were relatively clean compared to other P-47s. And with the colors I'm working with, it seems like that's probably the better choice. So, tonight I am going to focus a bit on these gun stains. We're going to start with some black. So you're going to have a bit of this Starship filth stuff, which isn't black, but it's like a kind of gross, dirty gray. It's almost the equivalent of, like, I don't know, a rubber black if you're thinking about standard paints, but in oil form. Yay. Okay, so we're going to start this off with a toothpick. Grab a little bit of Starship filth. We're basically going to start putting a little bit around the ejector ports themselves. I'll clean all this up as we go. Now it's time for some Deerfoot stippling action. One of my favorite tools for oil stuff are these Aqualon Wisp brushes. They're super dangerous when you get thinner on them. You can make some awesome streaks with them. But just by themselves, they can kind of get you that slight bit of streakiness while you're also blending things. This side is too strong. Let's kind of go a bit more diffuse. Because aerodynamics dictate this stuff's going to flow straight back. Now it's time to add a little bit of black to this. Now for black, it's a strong ass color, and I kind of want to keep this more focused around the actual ejector chutes themselves. Okay, now this is going to take a light touch. So for this, I'm not going to use that larger brush. We're going to use this smaller one that was, I don't know, it was in some sort of set that I had that I found. Okay, so why am I making the ejector chute stains so prominent? Well, my headcanon with this is Fireball was off on a mission and had cause to go crazy with its 8 nifty 50s, and those things create a lot of crud. And when they do, builds up on the bottom of the wing like this, and maybe they had a couple long days of combat air patrol and just didn't get cleaned, didn't get wiped down, whatever it might be. Why am I talking? Suck at talking and doing this at the same time. Okay, so I'm just kind of dappling that out a little bit to sort of give it a bit of a build. I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes, and once it kind of has its shit together, we can do some more blending with it. Because I think that's a bit too stark. Okay. That's looking pretty decent too. I think with that, I'm going to call it a night because it's getting a bit late, and we'll come back and play more tomorrow. Okay, so after sleeping on it and thinking about it kind of all day today, I can't leave this just plain and just weather the fluids and streaks. I can't. So we're going to do a little bit of light weathering on the rest of it. Now, what does that look like? Well, it begins with some Mr. Weathering Color White. And we dab a little bit onto a sponge. It's not really an accurate term, but I call this technique dry sponging. Basically, you brush the shit onto a sponge, and then you do the dabbing with the sponge. So you're kind of limiting the amount of stuff that you get on the actual surface. It's sort of a manageable amount. I might have to pick this up to do this. Now I've tested this on a mule and everything seems hunky-dory. So it's just a matter of okay, so we've got basically white all over this now. So we can you can see it a little bit better. You can see right there, it's kind of spattered all over the place. And the idea is we come in, this is a clean sponge, clean foam thing, whatever. And if it sticks on this one, it worked on the other one, I'm going to be really pissed off. All right. Come in with the soft brush and sort of blend it in so it's not so stark. We're basically taking advantage of the fact that shit doesn't stick so hot to metallics. I think there are a few areas where we're going to have to come in here and attack it with some thinner too. Basically, this is going to give us a more patinaed type surface, consistent with oxidation from being out in the elements, getting worn down, all that good stuff. Well, this isn't working as well as I'd hoped it would. Fortunately, we still have ways that we can address this. Yeesh, that's not what I wanted at all. That one still had some stuff on it from the other night. Well, fuck. Alright, set this guy down. Good idea, gone awry. Sweet. Best kind of ideas, huh? Okay, I think I'm finally getting somewhere with this. Basically what I've been doing, I'll show you on the port wing here in a second, is putting down white and gray Mr. Weathering color, kind of sweeping it and then stippling the shit out of it with a Deerfoot stippler, trying to get a little bit of wear because I really want to get some wear on the top. Maybe not so much wear, but just grunge. These things were in active service, flying a lot, etc. So, as you can see on the starboard wing here, it's pretty subtle, but it's there. Just grime and crud kind of on the wing. It still catches the light, still does the metallic thing quite well. Then, as you hit the right light, you see, oh look, shit on the wing. Maybe that's what I'll title this episode, Shit on the Wing. Alright. I'm also discovering that the stand is useless for stipple weathering. It bounces it all over the place. So, yeehaw. So over here, we've got our little port wing escapade going on. I'm going to hop in here with a little bit of multi-gray. And all I'm really doing, let's see, picking this up is getting perilous, is just come in here, tack it with the stippler, sweep it a little bit so that we don't get little hot spots. Smear it around basically, and then stipple, stipple, stipple. So there we have it. So I'm going to kind of keep going on this. It's really hard to film because it helps to hold it and have it close to my face so I can see what's going on. But we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, now that I've got the lower wings done, we're going to do something a little bit silly. And the idea here is to restore a little bit of sheen in a little bit of places. For that, we're going to be using this silver oil brusher. Now, what I'm going to do is smear a little bit on this dental pad. Get these on eBay. It's like every other damn thing in the world. And I'm just going to basically dab sponge into it. So we can kind of, dry sponge, and then just boop. I want a little bit more silver that's not thin. Okay, so that's kind of going like that. It's definitely an interesting finish. You can also hit, I've been doing a little bit on the top This one we gotta be careful though, because we don't want to get any of the blue. Make it more of a leading edge play. Alright. That's pretty cool. You see here, it's when it catches the light, it does different things. Still looks bare metalish, but it looks dirty. So, awesome. Let's zoom out a little bit, get the whole picture.